Come on, warm up just a little bit. I'd appreciate that. There we go. Bienvenidos YouTube, yo soy el jefe, el más guapo, el único MC Rockett. That was for all of my Hispanic speaking friends, all 15 of you. Anyway, so it's been a while since I've sat on my bike and narrated a video for you, so thought I'd make one because a lot has happened to this bike since I went to Arizona. I recently posted a video about my trip to Arizona, which was fun, by the way. But a lot of stuff has happened since then. It's been like almost a month since I have been back. So, start off, if you've been paying attention to this channel since the beginning, you'll know that I've had some problems with this bike ever since I bought it from the dealership brand new. If you haven't been paying attention, please let me bore you with the details. So the first thing I noticed the moment I signed the papers was that I got on the bike and we were putting the tank guard on the tank, and we noticed that there were some gouges in the tank. And apparently the guys at the dealership aren't very careful when they're assembling the bike, and so they got some really deep gouges in the paint on the tank, like down to the metal. So the dealership worked with Kawasaki and they got the tank replaced for me. I just had to bring it back in a couple weeks later and they replaced the tank. But another thing that I noticed right after I signed the papers, the guys in the shop in the service department filled it with gas, and I noticed that it was kind of hard to start, kind of hard to keep started. And later I realized this is what happens anytime I fill the tank to full. It's just hard to start. I have to rev it kind of hard just to start it, which is not something that's recommended. So that was another thing. Another thing was that if I idled the bike at the manufacturer's recommended idle speed of I think it's like 12 to 1500. I like to idle my bike at 1500. That's what I've always done with my bikes. It would often die, or at least try to die, anytime I would launch from a standstill. So I had a lot of embarrassing stalls and intersections. So that was another issue. When I took the bike in to get the tank replaced, I told them about these issues, and so I left the bike with them for a day or two, and they came back to me with, yeah, we looked into your idle issue and your your starting issue, and we talked to Kawasaki technical support, and they recommend that you idle the bike at 2,000 RPMs. I thought, okay, number one, I've never had to idle any of my bikes that high. Two, if this actually is something that Kawasaki recommends, how the hell do you not know this? You're a Kawasaki dealer. You can't tell me that I'm the first customer who's followed the owner's manual to the letter, or who's even read the owner's manual and followed the instructions thereof and idled his bike at the manufacturer's recommended setting. So if that is something that Kawasaki is now telling people, how did you not already know this? Why did you have to call Kawasaki to find this out? Anyway, so I just lived with a high idle of 2,000 RPMs, so I come to a stop at intersections, my bike could be like, you know. Anyway, So those issues just kind of went on. Idling it at 2,000 RPMs got rid of the stalling issue whenever I try to launch. But it never got rid of the issue where my bike would be hard to start anytime I filled it up. So that's just something that I kind of had to live with. Well, a few weeks before I went down to Arizona, a new problem cropped up that I've mentioned in my videos before, where I'd have inconsistent power delivery. So I complained about the rocking forward to backward motion like this, because at any time I would maintain my throttle, it would kind of like cut and then come back, cut and come back. But it was very slight, and it would happen in any gear. So I took it into the dealership again. I thought that I had maybe improved on the problem by cleaning out the fuel pump. I didn't. So I took it into the dealership. I left it with them for a couple of days. I went back, and the mechanic, he's like, yeah, I rode your bike and I don't notice anything out of the ordinary. I'm like, you're kidding me, right? He's like, well, no, I mean, I even rode our other Zx-6R, 2019 Zx-6R that we have on our showroom floor, and it does the same thing. Here, you want to ride it and see for yourself? I'm like, sure. So I rode theirs, and sure enough, it did it too. Not as severely as mine did, but it did it. And I'm thinking, okay, well, yeah, that's all fine and good. A brand new one does it too, but I've been riding mine for 4 months before it started doing it. So, but whatever, I couldn't argue with the fact that the new one did it too. And one of the other mechanics is like, yeah, I have a Vulcan, a Kawasaki Vulcan that does the same thing. Here, ride my bike and see for yourself. So I got to ride his Vulcan, and yeah, sure enough, it kind of did it too. Again, not as severely as my bike did. But anyway, I rode it down to Arizona like that. I still had a good time, but it was something that I wish wasn't an issue. Anyway, I get back from Arizona, and like the week after I get back, I start noticing terrible gas mileage. I mean, where I'm used to like high 40s to low 50s on my gas mileage, I'm getting like high 30s to low 40s. Terrible gas mileage in comparison to what I had been getting. So I don't even want to take it to the dealership for losing a few miles per gallon, because I know what the guy is going to say. Oh, I don't notice anything out of the ordinary. One of the things he said about the rocking issue, when I kept going like this, he's like, oh, these cams are so unpredictable. I'm thinking, how are cams unpredictable? It's a disc spinning on a camshaft. How can it be not predictable? It's always going to rotate the same direction and in the same way. But anyway, I didn't go any further into the issue. But with this gas mileage thing, I'm thinking, okay, something is wrong with my bike. So I start doing research online, as I'm often prone to do. I'm looking through the owner's manual, and I notice, oh, my bike has over 8,000 miles on it. Oh man, I should have changed those spark plugs like 1,000 miles ago. So I went to the dealer, I bought some spark plugs. They're cheap. I figured, yeah, it's a cheap fix. Don't know what I'm doing, because I've never torn my bike apart that much before. I had to take the tank off, which I have done. But I also had to take apart the airbox and then get down under the airbox to get to the ignition coils, pull those ignition coils, which is not a fun thing to do. Those things are hard to get out of there. And then change out the spark plugs. Luckily my dad had some tools that he's had for years, since he was an auto mechanic, like, I don't know, a Jurassic period ago. Anyway, so I borrowed some of his tools. I was able to change out my spark plugs. I was putting my bike back together, and I figured I'd probably better clean and lube my chain, because I hadn't done that since before my trip to Arizona. So I'm cleaning and lubing my chain, and I noticed that my rear tire is very low. I'm thinking, oh well, that might attribute to my terrible gas mileage. So I reinflate it to the recommended pressure, and I'm cleaning and lubing my chain. And you've seen me do this before. I made a video about it. I basically brush off the chain with some chain cleaner, and then I spray it off with some water. Well, some of that water gets on the wheel. So after I'd inflated my tire and sprayed water on it, I started hearing this kind of little sizzling noise. I'm like, oh crap, I know exactly what that noise means. So I'm looking all over the tire. Sure enough, I had what looked like the end of a pop rivet, or like the little shaft of a pop rivet had been stuck into my tire. And I'd obviously picked it up that day, because it was not a slow leak. So I could not test my bike to see if changing out the spark plugs helped anything, because it was nighttime and I had to wait till the next day to get my tire replaced. So I went ahead and took the wheel off the next morning, and then the next morning I took it into the dealership, and they didn't have the matching tire that I had been using, so they sold me a Dunlop Q3 Plus, which is a great tire, by the way. A lot of you know what I'm talking about. It's a great tire, and they gave me like a $30 some odd discount on it, because they didn't have the tire that I really wanted. So that was nice of them. I get it home, I put it on the bike, and I take it for a ride. Lo and behold, that bucking issue that I had been talking about, where I keep bucking back and forth because the throttle kept cutting, completely eliminated. And I can now idle my bike at 1500, where I like to idle it, and it doesn't even try to stall. I can fill the tank, hit the button, and it starts right up. It jumps to life. All of those issues resolved. All that had to happen was the spark plugs had to be changed. I'm guessing that I had a poorly gapped spark plug that came from the manufacturer. All right, dude. And obviously that bike on their showroom floor, that brand new one that I rode, probably has the same issue. That guy's Vulcan that I rode probably has a similar issue. But it's just, what irritates me is that they just kind of blew it off as if it was like, oh, well, that's just the way these bikes are. These bikes are so unpredictable. These bikes are made for racing. Those cams are so unpredictable. They're not meant to be unpredictable. They're fuel injected. They have a computerized, an electronic control unit, an ECU that's supposed to control all this stuff. This stuff is not supposed to be unpredictable. Anyway, so that problem is fixed. Now I have a new problem. Well, I still have the same problem of getting crappy gas mileage, but I have a new problem where in the pegs and in the handlebars I feel kind of like a pulsating vibration. It's almost like somebody's tapping with a hammer like this. But I only notice it like within a certain range of speed. And yesterday, a friend of mine, a guy that I work with, recommended an air filter, and I'm thinking, yeah, it could be the air filter, I suppose. It's a cheap thing to try. It's like 14 bucks for a new air filter. So yesterday after work, I went into the dealership and I bought an air filter. While I was there, I asked the guys, like, hey, when somebody brings a wheel in for you guys to mount a new tire, do you balance the tire before you give it back to him? The guy at the counter is like, yeah, sometimes. It just depends. I'm like, wait, what? It depends? What does it depend on? Why are you not doing it all the time? What does it depend on? He's like, well, the mechanical will balance it if he thinks he needs it. If he thinks it needs it. I'm thinking, how can the mechanic tell whether or not it needs to be balanced? You can't look at a tire and tell whether or not it's out of balance. So when I get a chance, I'm going to take the tire back to the dealership and say, hey, show me that this is balanced. And that could be contributing to my poor gas mileage at the moment. That, and I'm still going to try the air cleaner. But all of this tells me one thing. I need to just buy my own freaking tools and just do all of the work myself, including changing tires. I am not an automotive mechanic. I never was. My dad was, and he's really great with auto mechanics. I never really was. I'm a computer guy. I work in information technology. But I mean, I'm hesitant to take my bike into this dealership here in this Kawasaki dealership here in the St. George area for anything at this point. I don't like to talk bad about businesses or people, but Rocky Mountain ATV and Motorcycle in southern Utah, come on. But anyway, let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment down below. Please like this video, and don't forget to subscribe. That really helps me out a lot. Like my Facebook page, and hit me up on Twitter if you so desire. Until next time, remember, life is better on two wheels, so drive safe. I mean, ride safe. I mean, you know what I mean.